read through your introduction, and then I'm just going to turn it over to you and let you carry away.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. So thanks everybody for joining us tonight for ASAHPERD's Health Education webinar. Greg Congleton joins us as Alabama's account manager from ETR, Education, Training, and Research, and he is going to share their comprehensive K-12 health and wellness curriculum, HealthSmart, which gives children and youth the knowledge and skills to make healthy choices and establish lifelong healthy behaviors. Greg has worked with health and physical education teachers for over 7 years in helping providing resources and curriculum that meets national and state standards, as well as up-to-date in meeting the needs of students. And Greg, are you going to be joined tonight by John Henry?
Yes, fortunately, I have our national account manager, John Henry, waving. His name's also showing Greg Congleton, so
Gotcha.
I'll take credit for any of the great things that come out of his mouth.
Greg's making me look better all the time.
Well, we are so grateful to have you both with us. And so with that, I am going to turn it over to you guys.
Certainly. Thank you all so much for allowing us to join. We appreciate the opportunity, and thank you for your patience as we are continuing to work in this technical world and figuring out the technical aspects of getting together for a virtual meeting. It's unfortunate that we can't at this time collect in a conference room or in a conference setting and have a discussion, but it is a joy that we are able to connect digitally and virtually in this setting. You know, again, thank you all for the work that going into the summer and the spring, we all knew it was going to be most certainly interesting times. The landscape for the fall semester was most certainly in question, and teachers, educators, students, parents, communities were working very hard over the summer to be prepared for what the fall might be, and taking a lot of the vacation time to prepare and get ready for this school year. So just hats off to you as educators and community leaders for being able to do that, to provide the best situation for the students that you have within your classroom. It's really a joy to get to work with educators who do that consistently. My name is Greg Congleton. I am the Alabama account manager. I am located here in Nashville, Tennessee, just a little bit north of you. I have had the pleasure of working with Alabama educators for the last 2 or 3 years, and I continue to look forward to working with you in regards to health education and your schools. I am joined, he has gotten the opportunity to introduce himself, but by a colleague who I've really come to admire, as well as a mentor for somebody who is just dedicated to this field and dedicated to bettering the lives of students and the teachers that he has the opportunity to work with, Mr. John Henry Ledworth. If you had anything else that you would like to add, feel free. Hey, John, you're on mute.
As you know, sometimes that's the preferred mode for me. Coming from a large Irish family, it was more, conversation was a competitive sport. I would only add that one of the things that I really value in working with ETR as a nonprofit organization is that it's about outcomes and finding the right fit for the educating communities that we work with. And with that being said, let's just jump ahead, because I want to be very respectful of time and time zones for the educators who have been able to give of their day here, because I know it's a little bit later in Alabama than it is in California. And Greg, being in Tennessee, you're part of that too. So
certainly. And we are thrilled to share just the most updated middle school and high school curriculum that is available in both print and digital formats. So just understand that this is something that, as COVID was hitting, we were preparing to launch our middle school and high school units. And within the last couple of weeks, we've actually been able to have our print materials in stock, as well as launch our new digital website, which we will be taking a look at here shortly. Our elementary K-5 units were updated in 2018, 2019. So those are up to date as well. They are all built on a foundation of national health standards and best practices. We do encourage questions, thoughts, and feedback. Please feel free to utilize the chat boxes as well as we will have time for questions after various segments. And then we'd also enjoy getting to know who is joining us here tonight. So in that chat box, if you'd like to leave your name, the school that you're with, and potentially the grade levels that you teach, we'd certainly enjoy hearing that information. And let's see if it wants to start. So ETR, Education Training and Research, is a nonprofit research training and publishing company. We offer science-based health and education products and programs. We develop health education materials and curricula, including HealthSmart, do research on evidence-based programs and other aspects of sexual and reproductive health, as well as diversity and inclusion in STEM. We offer training on evidence-based and offer professional development on a variety of facilitation skills for both youth and adult learners. HealthSmart or health education is different than other academic subjects. It's not just a textbook, but something that kids are living every day. We see it in the choices they make, whether it's choosing a snack or deciding between playing basketball or video games with friends after school. It's reflected in how they communicate with their friends, handle a disagreement, or resist pressure. The norms around them either support or discourage healthy behaviors, and their own attitudes and beliefs will affect the choices and actions around health. HealthSmart is different as well. It's not a textbook. It's skills-based, interactive, student-centered teaching plan that engages students and helps to personalize and apply what they're learning to the lives in real time. The primary and ultimate goal of HealthSmart is to help students adopt and maintain healthy behaviors to experience healthy lifestyles for the rest of their lives. John Henry, is there anything that you'd like to add before we kind of move forward?
Well, I think your reference or conversation of HealthSmart being a true curriculum, not necessarily a textbook, is the approach that we really took in its early development. ETR is the largest recognized producer of evidence-based interventions in the nation today, and HealthSmart is what the CDC now refers to as an evidence-informed curriculum, aligned to national health education standards, to the CDC's HECAT that I know you'll get a little bit deeper into. But the real goal of HealthSmart is in focusing on those healthy behaviors. What are the skills needed in order to shape the value of the peer group, which HealthSmart was one of the first curriculum in the country to actually take that on. That was from a lot of the early work of Dr. William Kane, who was a colleague working directly with and in support of one another with Dr. Lloyd Colby, two of my mentors and giants in the field of health education, I would say, and also around the work of Dr. Susan Teljohn in looking at what are those really refined skills that are needed, and how do you motivate the student to use those skills in order to get to the behavioral health outcome that you want to achieve.
Thank you. The Alabama Health Education Anchor Standards were updated in 2019. In today's discussion, you will notice our alignment with the National Health Education Standards, the CDC Top 6 Risks to Youth Health, CDC's Characteristics of Effective Health Curricula, and the CDC's Health Education Curriculum Analysis Tool. All of these tools were taken into account as the committee joined together in regards to the standards that were put in place in Alabama. And as you'll notice in this document, we do have alignment with the National Health Education Standards to the HealthSmart curriculum. And they align very well with the, again, standards that Alabama put together. These resources, as well as some of the other resources that are available to download or available for you, I'll have links for those later on during this discussion for you to be able to print out and utilize within your classroom or within any virtual setting that you're within. If you're creating your own Google Classroom, these are a great piece to put within your wall just so that students are understanding the standards that are being expected.
Greg, I would also just jump in that regardless whether I know we're talking about one of our programs, and again, this is what I love about ETR, that I really believe in the curriculum. I think it's the strongest, most effective, and most contemporary curriculum for health education in the country today. However, there's such a large bevy of resources that can be helpful to you on the ETR overall website, looking at our programs, our projects, our people, and on the HealthSmart website. If you want to download, or if you would like a free laminated copy of just the National Health Education Standards, we're happy to send that to you. If you want something that has an alignment to it like HealthSmart, we're happy to send that to you. We also have packs of the standards in 8.5 by 11 laminated cards, which are really great if you're doing a carousel or a round robin or some professional development, either with yourself or with your team. Those are available for you for download, or we'll send them to you. So really avail yourself of the HealthSmart website, and as well as, and again, Greg, I apologize if you reference these things farther along in the presentation, looking at the CDC's, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention's Division of Adolescent School Health site. There's a tremendous amount of resources there for professional development, and really looking at how to identify, build, or even create a skills-based health education program that's aligned to the outcomes you want to achieve.
Great, thank you. We are going to take a quick look at the foundation of the HealthSmart program, including the national initiatives integral to the development, as well as the theory of which the program is based. As we've mentioned, the CDC does have the CDC 6, the top risks to youth health. If you get a moment, or if you know what any of those 6 might be, what kind of things come to mind, or what kind of issues do you deal with in your own school that are facing your own students? Just in the chat box, feel free to leave those in the comment section. And HealthSmart is organized around the greatest areas of risk for children and teens. These are the behaviors area monitored by the National Youth Health Behavior Survey. And let's see if any of these have come up.
Well, and it really is thinking about what is it that's affecting your students. Suicide, certainly. Emotional behavioral health issues along those lines that lead to that. Bullying, violence prevention. Absolutely. The mental health issues often, and emotional behavioral health, social emotional learning, often not something that people look at or that are focused on at times. Self-esteem and self-confidence.
Yes, exactly. HealthSmart was the first national health curriculum to choose to focus on the CDC 6. Dr. Bill Kane, one of the original developers, said we should look to the epidemiology, what were the biggest risks to children and teens, and focus the lessons on shaping the behaviors that would help kids avoid those major risks. This was also a time with the release of the first National Health Education Standards, when the focus was shifting towards helping students develop skills in addition to understanding concepts. It seems obvious now to hone in on those areas of greatest risk and emphasize skill development, but the first edition of HealthSmart was really quite revolutionary at the time. John Henry, I know you did mention Dr. Bill Kane, but as somebody who had the pleasure of working with Dr. Kane, can you highlight the impact this made? And then, what do you think his impressions would be seeing the curriculum now in the latest updated editions?
Well, I think, at least particularly for where we're at right now, because when we first worked at developing a comprehensive health curriculum, the first round of the National Health Education Standards had just been completed. The HECAT, the Health Education Curriculum Analysis Tool, had not really been even thought of or put in place. In fact, those original ideas, part of a large group of people that were involved in that were with Dr. Lloyd Colby out of Indiana and Dr. William Kane out of New Mexico, and with a cross-section of different people. I think Bill would be most happy about how, even in the new edition, we've honed down even more onto those specific lessons, those particular behaviors. What is the knowledge that students need in order to impact where the most harm is coming? Looking at morbidity and mortality in real rudimentary terms. You know, what's killing kids? What's keeping kids from graduating school? What's causing attendance to be down? What are those particular things that are happening, and what are the specific lessons and skills we need to do in order to get the outcomes that we want to achieve? And that's really what I think he would be most proud of, is continuing to look at the very limited amount of time that we have available to teach health education in our classes, and how can we look at something like comprehensive health and create not only a program, but the tools to help us refine and focus on the outcomes we want to achieve.
All right, thank you. So the HealthSmart curriculum is developed across the K-12 landscape. Elementary looks a little bit different than middle school and high school. Elementary is built based on grade levels, which all of these topic areas are built within the grade levels, age level appropriate. So these are all available. You can purchase a set, or they can be purchased by the individual grade level. At the middle and high school level, it takes a more modular approach to the curriculum, with separate units for the key health topics, which you'll notice corresponding to the CDC-6. In addition to these key risk behaviors, HealthSmart covers the mental, emotional health, and personal health and wellness, two other areas identified by the CDC as essential parts of the comprehensive health education program. These other content areas are being covered in health classes.
You know, and I apologize to the team. I'm not sure of the process or the scheduling that you do directly in Alabama myself. But one of the reasons that we have at the elementary level, those components are at the grade level, because often we found nationally at the individual grades, a lot of times it's the classroom teacher themselves who are working in and doing that. So we have the individual grades. And then at middle school and high school, the ability to be able to mix and match and work one particular subject with another. You want to look at these different subjects that you might be teaching several different lessons across each of these subject areas, or you might be doing abstinence and puberty at a higher grade along with HIV and STD, where you might be introducing nutrition and physical activity or violence and injury at an earlier grade. It's what works best for you. So you have that ability to customize your approach and reflection to the community that you serve.
And certainly at middle school and high school, but also elementary, these units and grade levels do come along with scope and sequence charts, as well as HECAT alignment. So you have the ability, and we have other tools available that allow you to align this and plan this with your team to understand what areas you need to address, you know, based on what areas are affecting the students that are within your classroom. The HealthSmart program is based on the theory of planned behavior. The framework for the lessons and activities, it essentially says that what people believe, their attitudes towards a given health behavior, as well as the influences around them, affect the confidence and ability to take action. These things build an intention that can lead to positive actions. Theoretical principles woven throughout the lessons and activities increase the likelihood that students will value and practice the healthy actions that help prevent excessive morbidity and premature mortality. The lessons are designed to impart key health concepts, the knowledge and skills, the practical application that will lead to thinking, choosing, and acting in healthy ways. Build power to use knowledge. When students understand the concepts needed to practice healthy behaviors, build power to use skills through guided practice, build a personal value for healthy behaviors as students explore health beliefs and potential outcomes for health, shape healthy peer norms. When students understand the healthy actions family and friends support and expect. increase perception of control over their own health choices and behaviors as students acquire knowledge, develop skills, and establish support systems.
You know, and it's really, and you could certainly advance to the next slide or keep going as you choose there, Greg, because I want to be conscious of the time since we got a little bit of a late start here. But once again, and I had mentioned it earlier, it is that that concept, not just a theoretical concept, but a scientific practice of how do you get to and shape the value of the peer norm. All of us as educators, and certainly if anyone has the experience of being a parent, as the maturation process takes place, those influencing factors shift from the home to a broader network within the community. And how can we give the skills and practice and put them in place in order not only to shape the actions, the skill sets, the acceptance, the refusal skills of the students, but to shape the value of the peers whom become that greater influencing source. And HealthSmart's built specifically around that within the theoretical framework of the trans-theoretical model, those stages of change, and the theory of planned behavior that Greg was just referring to as well.
So the research on what makes health education program effective is, of course, ongoing, but there are some qualities of characteristics programs that work seem to share. Incorporating these best practices was definitely a goal of the HealthSmart developers, and the programs meet the 15 characteristics of effective health education curriculum defined by the CDC. You can see that we've already talked about several of these already. The clear goal of establishing healthy behavior outcomes, theory-driven, building values and attitudes, and peer norms. We're going to look more closely at a few of these in just a little while, including examining how the program builds skill and what exactly is meant by functional health knowledge. We'll also look at lesson structure to see the ways HealthSmart helps students personalize the information and apply it to their lives. The website provides more detail on how the program meets each of the characteristics. You can find it under the standards in the main menu bar. And finally, of course, we are addressing number 15 today with this orientation.
You know, Greg, I would also add that the characteristics, and this is again marvelous tool. The characteristics of effective health education curricula and practice. You can there are things you can download, look at. There are a number of different blogs and items that you can refer to for your own background and knowledge. But you can certainly also go onto the CDC. This really grew out of, I'm going to date myself here a little bit, probably over most of the people in the room. It really goes back to the days when the Reagan administration initiated the Just Say No and drug programs. And there was a tremendous amount of funding that went out into the country and all around school systems at the time. And it was a great and tremendous time of discovery, but in truth, and may we all face this at some point, people didn't know what to do with the funding that they had. And afterwards, the CDC very effectively looked at where were there successful programs and what didn't work out of that. And that's where a lot of the work and the evaluation to create the paradigms around evidence-based interventions took place, single subject focuses, and what was it within those particular practices that was causing and impacting behavior. So that's really where the characteristics came out of. And if you're looking at analyzing or designing a decision for how you want to incorporate a particular practice, I highly encourage you to become very familiar with the characteristics of effective health education practices. This doesn't apply just to ETR programs. You can look at all programs and see and use that as a tool and an effective way of monitoring your own teaching style. I think Greg will probably touch on functional versus non-functional knowledge, need to know versus nice to know. There'll be some questions about that if we have time for it. But those characteristics are another tool that you can use across the state of Alabama and in your own classrooms for what's going to be most effective for you in looking at and analyzing your own work, whether you worked with ETR or not.
Certainly. In understanding the primary goal of the HealthSmart program is to empower students to achieve health behavior outcomes. We do know that health literate students who have the knowledge and skills to achieve health behavior outcomes are more effective in creating a lifestyle of, or in creating a healthy lifestyle. We're going to take a look more closely at some of the components and see what is out there and available. As mentioned, the K-5 program is organized by grade level. Within the K2 grade levels, there is not a student workbook or a student journal that goes along with the materials, but master documents are available for the teacher. Master posters are available for the teacher to utilize within the classroom. A teacher does receive a teacher guide that can be either print or digital with the lessons online for them to access. They do provide the easy to teach lessons with clear objectives and teaching steps and assessments. As we get into the grades 3 and 5, there are student materials including. These student materials are reading sheets and activity sheets for all the content area lessons and provide a complete portfolio of students' work for performance assessments. These, again, as we'll see in the middle and high school levels, are a journal that students enjoy holding on to, and they see their development, but they also are able to write down their feelings and write down what's going on kind of around them. And they really do gravitate towards holding on to these for a time period. Within middle school and high school, again, we will see a teacher that has a teacher guide. These are broken down into the 6 module content areas. The teacher guides provide, again, the easy to teach lessons with clear objectives, teaching steps and assessments, assessment rubrics, and glossaries. Each lesson has a slide deck. We'll see some of those brand new PowerPoint slides here shortly. Presented key concept, pose discussion questions, give instructions for group activities and assignments, and summarize key learning. The student workbooks, again, provide the student activities, assessments, but within the new 3rd edition, they also include student journals. These student journals are great for bell ringer questions as well as for assignments, again, to discuss feelings and knowledge that they've learned throughout the lesson and to close out a lesson. So this is a new look at our new website, Outlook. It is much cleaner. It is very functional. It's great to take a look at. But within every lesson, this is going to be uniform. So being easy to use for a teacher is going to be one of the key benefits. It provides a succinct overview of the lesson. It provides the time required for the lesson, the healthy behaviors the lesson addresses, the alignment to the National Health Education Standards, and then the sidebars on the right offer quick navigation, lesson sections, as well as link to all related teacher and student resources.
Greg, I would also encourage everybody, and I'm sure you'll have the links in a little while, to go to the HealthSmart website at etr.org/HealthSmart. Anyone can access a great amount of detail in here in order to move yourself around the sites, really see what the lessons are there, what are some of the support materials. You won't be able to open it up completely, but we can certainly make that available to anyone that has interest as well.
Right, and we'll have that link provided, and we'll take a quick look as time permits towards the end. The lesson objectives correlate to the HECAT and meet the National Health Education Standards. So those are going to be addressed in every lesson and provided in PowerPoint as well as the overview. The materials and prep are what you need as you are in your planning stages as you're preparing for teaching and facilitating the lessons. It provides how to prepare and the materials needed. The health terms and the glossary are listed here. And then the support for diverse learners offers tips for adapting lessons to help all students succeed. And again, along with the navigation and the sidebars are always going to be there available for you to click on, download, and utilize. As I mentioned, the new PowerPoint slides are an exciting feature of the 3rd edition. These have been greatly updated from the 2nd edition material. They're a lot more colorful. They're going to be grade level specific. So middle school and high school are going to look a little bit different, but the research that went in behind building these was pretty extensive, understanding what is going to catch the eye of a student and keep the attention. The slides are used to introduce transition, student journal entries, present the healthy behavior outcomes of a lesson, and share lesson objectives. They also pose questions for discussions, explain important concepts, and provide instruction for group activities and skill practice.
No, I'd also, Greg, I apologize. I would also add in that in amongst those PowerPoints, it's a very nice teaching tool. All of your teaching steps are in the teacher notes. So if you're working remotely, that's a nice way to be able to do that as a first introductory to the program. And as Greg will continue to show, the instructional design that is put into this makes the teaching of the lessons almost immediately accessible. That you really could get in there and use it very effectively with very little warm-up. We certainly recommend that you review ahead of time, and professional development is always a great strength to have in looking at not only the theoretical underpinnings, but working with some of the key concepts. But it is something that you're able to step into fairly quickly and use almost right away.
Thank you. Yeah, certainly. So with the teacher guides, PowerPoint versions, you do have notes that are available, as well as the teaching steps, as John Henry has mentioned, flow in a way that it cues you up for which slide you're actually showing and teaching, so you're understanding what you're taking a look at as well. The lessons also have built-in assessment enclosures. The last page of each lesson has the assessment and closure, the assignment of the performance task that allows teachers and students learning or mastery of a skill. The closure allows students to conclude by reinforcing a key message, and the assessment evidence lists the assessment task for each objective. They are provided in an authentic assessment. The rubrics list all of the objectives for the lesson, as well as the 4-point graded scale to help teachers evaluate students' work and their achievement of each objective.
I have to add in my own little bias here, Greg. I was personally extremely excited by the scoring rubrics because any of us who have ever struggled with this, designing rubrics, this is a real gift in many ways to the organizational work that you need to do. And it's so helpful in the assessment that you need to do on looking at that skill and accessible knowledge that the student has taken on.
Absolutely. Makes it much nicer, cleaner, and concise. All of the assessment and pieces for the students do provide a self-check box on the student activity sheets. This is helpful for both students and teachers to understand, are they meeting the criteria set forth to earn a satisfactory grade within the project, and are they taking away the key concepts of the lesson. At this time, we will pause quickly for some questions. I do know we've got to kind of continue to move, but
well, and I also want to, with our host, I want to be sure that we're paying attention to time frame. My understanding is, I know we started late, but I want to be respectful of the 60-minute or 1 hour mark. And with that said, as we move forward, Greg, we may want to skip a few things that we can come back to later. But I see a question in the chat box of how can these items be implemented through visual instruction? Connie, I wonder if you want to unmute yourself, or if you can, and maybe expound on that question a little bit more. I'm not sure if you were asking about for sight impaired or...
I probably misspelled. I'm having a senior moment.
I'm right there with you, my friend.
But I was looking at, all of the workbooks and the resources. So I just wanted to know was there a virtual format that we could actually implement, like if we're working with K through 5 and utilize those workbooks? I mean, are they ebooks at some point or what?
All the curriculum's available in 2 different formats, both in print and digital. So traditional hard copies of things with consumable workbooks for the students at grades 3, 4, and 5, and then at the individual subjects at middle school and high school. They're also available digitally as downloadable, fillable PDFs in all of those different grade levels, which you could download, whether it be on Canvas or Google Classroom. We're working on platforms for your learning management systems, your LMS systems across the different districts and how they would use. But you do have both formats available, which we would be happy to talk about either individually, or Greg can present to you at another time.
Certainly. Skipped ahead just a little bit, but more than happy to answer the question. So this is what the new website does look like, but also the digital experience would feel for an educator. The lessons are provided here, so whichever lesson that you decide or units that you decide that you would like to go with, they are all available here. By clicking on a grade level, we're able to take a look at all the lessons. I believe within 3rd grade we have 30 lessons, 29 lessons, but based on the teacher and the lesson that they're looking to address, they have the overview of the lesson all within this page. They can click within that lesson. The explore the lesson and all the overview materials and preparation teaching steps are all available here. The PowerPoints and slides that are necessary to go along with the documentation is available here. It comes in a PDF format, so it can be implemented within your classroom easily. Again, the PowerPoint is going to be clear, concise for you to be able to take a look at. It is in a PDF format as well. So it will follow along with the teaching steps necessary. And when we get to the student materials, if it wants to let me get there, it's a brand new site and we're still working out some of the kinks. I'll go back to one that hopefully will allow me to. So the student workbook material is in a fillable PDF format, and that's not what I need. So being in a fillable PDF format, you would be able to, currently we do have the ability to set this up with Google Classroom. As John Henry mentioned, we're still working on the LMS system integration, but we're also looking at Schoology, Canvas, and how this might work within that system. So these are fillable PDFs. You can upload them, allow your students to download, complete, and return back to you for assessment features. So these would be kind of our digital solution for you in this virtual setting that we're in. Thank you, Connie, for the question. So as John Henry did mention, we'll want to kind of skedaddle through this.
That's a great word, skedaddle.
So we know that knowledge alone is not enough to change the health behavior. Students need to have a personal value for health, be supported by healthy norms, and build the skills that will enable them to practice health behaviors. So knowledge alone is not enough. So we've got to build those skills within the lessons that we teach. If recall, the primary goal of health education and therefore of HealthSmart is to help students adopt and maintain healthy behaviors. All of the foundational elements are essential pieces of the puzzle in achieving that goal. We're going to take a closer look at the 3 elements from the 15 characteristics of effective health education curricula play out in the program's design, providing functional health knowledge, building competence and self-efficiency by addressing and reinforcing skill, addressing individual and group norms that support health-enhancing behaviors. We can think of knowledge, skills, and norms as different pieces of the puzzle. The first piece of the puzzle from the characteristics of effective health education curricula, we know that functional knowledge is key. What do we mean by functional? Simply those facts and concepts that are essential to making healthy decisions and practice health-enhancing behaviors. So when we look at what students need to know, the first step is practicing a health behavior outcome is the functional knowledge. Learning and understanding important concepts about the health topic or behavior in question relates to the first National Health Ed Standard, comprehending concepts. And finally, in developing HealthSmart, we made distinction between need to know and nice to know. Need to know is the functional knowledge presented by an effective program. Kids need to move 60 minutes a day. Nice to know is just that, of interest both now and in the future, but not essential to the practice of health behavior.
I'd say, again, that's something to think about in your own professional development and in looking at other programs and the characteristics. The functional versus non-functional knowledge always does seem to really resonate to people, and we've, put that out as need to know versus nice to know. I often will have this conversation with people who are amazingly experienced and very knowledgeable. A lot of times, I'll be talking with physicians and they'll have so much information that they want to share, but we really don't have the time for that. And even as physical educators, if you think about the bones in your hand, how many bones are in the hand, and that's really nice to know, and maybe need to know if I'm going on to be a kinesiologist or I'm going to be pre-med. But if our goal or if our behavioral outcome is to give the skills in place to keep that hand from grasping a beer and binge drinking out behind the stadium on a Friday night, then talking about the bone structure in the hand in our class time is a nice to know thing, not a need to know. And that's that functional versus non-functional, focusing on what are those goals and intents in the small amount of time that we have that we really want to work on. Greg, I want to check and be sure, do we have a hard stop at the top of the hour here? Because we're approaching that, and being somebody who's been living in a household with an educator and for many decades now, I know the work that goes into the evening for teachers, and I want to be respectful of that.
Certainly.
You guys can feel free going until you feel that you have adequately covered the material. If people need to drop off, they can, but we'll keep recording and then we'll put this on our website. So you guys are free to carry on.
Thank you.
Thank you. So characteristics also point out the importance of building skilled building to help students adopt and maintain healthy behaviors. So the second piece of the puzzle is learning and practicing the skills that will help support healthy behaviors. Think of the skills that, as what students need to be able to do to adopt and maintain healthy behaviors. Essential skills for health literacy are described in standards 2 through 8 of the National Health Education Standards. This key characteristic of effective programs was something we really focused on in the development of the curricula, with special attention to how a skill is best broken down and taught, particularly at the earliest grades. The standard performance indicators supporting the progression and the gradual deepening of the skill development through K-12 span. The HealthSmart K-12 step-by-step approach to skill development introduced the skill and related to students' lives through examples, explain the sequential and specific steps for the successful performance of the skill, model of each of the steps in the entire skill sequence, provide guided practice of the skill through structured role plays, large group discussion, or small group work, and allow students to practice that skill in real-time situations followed by feedback, reinforcement, and discussion of the success and challenges.
And I think you'll find that throughout the program as you're looking at the lessons themselves, that idea of introduce, explain, model, practice. Explain, model, practice, model, practice. It comes up again and again in really initiating that skill set that you want to have. so that the student feels very strongly and confident about putting it into place.
We've also talked about how functional knowledge and effective skill development practices support students to be able to adopt healthy behaviors. The students also need to be supported by healthy norms as they build the skills that will enable them to practice healthy behaviors. This is an approach that all evidence-based programs use right now. Highlighting existing norms that support healthy behaviors and building support for an expectation of healthy behaviors among peers and families are two ways HealthSmart does this. John Henry, is there anything that you'd like to touch on here?
Well, it's really just that idea of coming back to the combination of the theoretical underpinning of effective and evidence-based programs. What are those things that we have in place that are going to make a comprehensive health education curricula impart and put those skills into place? You know, how do we, advocacy, goal setting, looking at decision making, effective decision making, communication skills, analyzing the influences of the students' choices around them. All of those things that are interwoven into the Alabama state standards, coming from the National Health Education Standards, and how can that work with their students?
We do have another.
If I had to think about it.
Right. We do have another break for any questions, if there are any. Perfect. And feel free to provide those questions if you have any, but we are going to dig back into the website and discuss kind of the new features of the new website. So we are, again, extremely excited about the release of this website. Our development team has just done a remarkable job of building this out, putting this together, cleaning this up, and just their thoughts and their ambitions on continuing for this platform to grow. And again, the thoughts and goals that they have for it are going to be remarkable. One tool that I'm going to highlight, because it is going to be a key tool for teachers, for coordinators, just for anybody within this health education space. I'm going to take a look at our second edition, and I am going to our lesson planning tool. This lesson planning tool is just at the beginning of a semester, or when you are taking a look at your YRBS data and you're understanding what key areas that you need to focus on. This planning tool is going to provide you clear, concise lessons that you need to address within your classroom. Or you can also take a look at how many days in a classroom do you have with the students that you're teaching, and it allows you to navigate what is most effective for your students. So this is going to be completely updated. It's also going to be released hopefully within the next couple of days, or if not a week. But as an educator, as somebody who's looking at the website, feel free to give this a look, just because it is something that you can take a look at now and see what would be built for you. So if you are a high school educator, you'd be able to pick the content areas that you would like to address within your class. We can take a guess on how many class periods that you have available to teach. We can also take a look at the skills that you're looking to address. And then the health behavior outcomes that you're also looking to address. So, you know, clearly we see that there are a ton here.
Oh, yeah.
And at some point there's going to be a click all button, because we know that's going to be effective, instead of clicking on the many that are available. But you'll be able to go to view my lesson, and it's going to give you an overview of everything that you selected, and based on the criteria that you provided, how many lessons are available for you. The guide contains 74 lessons, which clearly that's too many for the 40 class periods that you have to teach, but you can also edit the search criteria to, again, narrow it down a little bit, or you might have more class periods for it. As mentioned, it's going to address the health behavior outcomes, the skills, and the standards that you're addressing, as well as the lessons in an order for sequential teaching of the units and the lessons.
You know, I would just go ahead and add in here, in a sense, a little bit of a review of some of the things that Greg was just saying. If coming from, well, not really even old school, many of us to this day, if we're looking at a comprehensive curriculum, even at just middle school or at high school, it's a beast. It's a lot to look at in the time that we have available to teach health. If you're like me, you'd pull out, if you had them, the scope and sequence chart. You'd be looking at your lessons. You'd be defining what it was and designing that plan, spending hours of time, if not days, in getting that particular course of study set so that it could fit within the time available that we have for health education. What the lesson planning tool does, almost as its title is allow you within those 5 simple steps of saying what your grade level is that you need, what the subject or subjects you want to focus on, looking at the National Health Education Standards. Which of those standards do you really want to be sure to include? What are the outcomes that you want to achieve within the healthy behavioral outcomes? And how many class periods do you have to teach health? And it pulls for you from across the curriculum and gives you that design course of study. What happened for Greg there in the earlier version of the lesson planning tool, and there's a new one on the website now, is that he made a selection of quite a few of the HBOs. I would recommend that you go in and you practice a little bit with this, and after using it 2 or 3 times, many people, because HBOs are so broad, they can go over a number of different subject areas. You want to narrow down what that focus is. What this tool does is it will allow at your district level, it allows your curriculum instruction director or your health and PE director to really set up a course of study if you want that to come from the district office, or at the site base to design that particular course of study for the group that you're with and the students that you're working at for the entire quarter, for the entire year. It also allows you that if you have a national or regional event that's taking place and you want to address a couple of particular issues. Someone in the chat very unfortunately talked about some gun violence that happened with a few students. You might want to be, that may not have been in your plan to talk about, but you can very quickly write on your phone from the parking lot or as you're pulled over, not driving, on your way to school, grab a couple of quick lessons focused on those particular areas to shift and change what you might have been teaching. So it's a very effective tool that you'll want to get into and explore some.
Certainly, thank you. We, as I mentioned, we are excited for the relaunch of the lesson planning tool within the 3rd edition, just because it will be aligned to the newest edition of content and materials. This site will be up for another year, so we are going to support it for another year. We are sunsetting the 2nd edition middle school and high school curriculum. But that is a great feature for you if you are very interested in checking out a particular unit within middle school or high school, or would like to implement any of these materials. We do have print materials as well as access to the digital material for another year. We do have some discounted pricing for the 2nd edition material. So if it is something that you are just wanting to potentially get a taste for it or show an administrator kind of the effectiveness of the curriculum, I would highly suggest certainly reaching out and just saying, hey, I'd love to take a look at the 2nd edition unit, and we can provide that for you at a discounted price. And that would give you an option to kind of take a look at it, utilize it within your classroom, and then see if the 3rd edition is something that you'd want to take a look at going forward. So we'll get back to the newest website.
You know, while Greg's making that switch over the site, just a little bit more on the value of the lesson planning tool. Again, when we're building and designing a comprehensive curriculum, taking all of the standards into account and really looking at all of the different subjects, And contrasting that against the time that we have to teach health is one topic, but also availing yourself. I'm a real believer in data drives decision making. What is going on? And again, I apologize, I'm not sure which of the districts and which of you maybe use and avail yourself of the YRBS, the CDC's Youth Behavioral Risk Surveillance Survey, or whichever form of data collection that you do. Really looking at what's going on in your community, what's happening with your students, and really within the state, what's impacting and happening for students in Tuscaloosa may not be what's happening in Foley. What's taking place and is a real issue in Montgomery and Decatur may not be what's happening in Fairhope. The vaping may be an issue in one particular district. Violence and injury and gun violence may be an issue somewhere else. The use of the lesson planning tool allows you to construct and continue not only to design your own course of study, but really tailor it to what the data is telling you is impacting your particular community that's there. I think it's a very useful tool. It's tied directly to those lessons within HealthSmart, but it's also a very useful tool in looking at what are the healthy behavioral outcomes that you want to work on, what are the particular standards that you may want to focus on. It's a very helpful and useful design that can lend itself well to all of the work that you're doing across the state, and at the same time be focused right on your own community and your neighborhood school.
Certainly, it really does that. Within the website, the HealthSmart overview, there is a great introductory video and orientation video. If interested, I would suggest taking a look at those. Dr. Sue Teljohn goes through the lessons in great detail and provides details for you there. In the for teachers and administrators, and we'll be able to see this shortly, you'll be able to request a preview of the 3rd edition digital version. So if that is of any interest to you, it's immediate access for you to be able to take a look at the new editions of the middle school and high school materials, or take a look at also the K-5 materials. And then we do have free disease prevention lessons that are available, hygiene and personal hygiene and wellness lessons that are available K through 12. Again, if you are just looking for a sample to implement within your own program, as we are getting back to school, we understand health topics kind of starting this school year out are unique. So these are some great activities to utilize to stress the importance of good, clean hygiene. All of the standards are listed under the standards tab, and you can take a look at the standards that the curriculum does address. There are also other nationwide laws that HealthSmart does address, like Aaron's Law has been aligned with HealthSmart materials. So we have lessons specific that would address the concept or the mandate for that law being instructed. Some of the resources that are available, I think one of the key nice resources are just the other material that is available with the purchase of the material. And understanding that this is a lot. On the next page, I'm going to get to this Symbaloo. If you are interested in seeing this, I'm more than happy to send you this link. As always, follow us on social media. We love to interact and love to hear your questions. This Symbaloo was developed just to kind of keep everything in one concise location. As an avid user of the website and of the material, it can be easy for me to be able to locate and find, as well as John Henry. But as an administrator, as somebody who is not as fluid with the website, this is a great document that provides everything that you need. It provides blog posts that are available, video overviews that are available, just anything and everything that you might need, ESSA information. So this is kind of a great tool that is available for you. As I mentioned, we do have resources that are available for you. We have kind of discussed most, if not all of these. The National Health Education Posters and Standards are available. John Henry did mention that these are available as well in a laminated format. But any of these are great for a teacher to be able to share with their students or share within their class. The hand washing lessons, again, easy to download, easy to get a sample of what the layout of the curriculum looks like and how easy it is to use within a classroom. Also, as kind of COVID was affecting the spring semester, the wonderful team at ETR created a Design for Learning team, a virtual vitality tip sheet for living and teaching in this new virtual world. These are all PDF versions of documents that can be addressed to just help within the health education environment. And certainly, I as we are over the time, but I certainly want to say thank you for allowing us to join. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have before we log off. I'd be eager to continue the conversation with you as we move forward, and my contact information is available. Or feel free to leave your information in the chat box and I'll follow up with you after this conversation. John Henry, was there anything that you wanted to close with?
Well, really, it's make sure I'm unmuted here. Sorry. Making sure that when we're looking at and referring to the health education practices and classes that we're putting forth, that the programs and the lessons that we're working on are based in sound theoretical theory, that they are aligned and working with the National Health Education Standards. What are those particular outcomes that we want to have? And really, I would highly encourage, once again, there is a tremendous amount of free resources at the CDC's Center for Disease Control and Prevention, a division of adolescent school health. If you just put in CDC-DASH, you'll be able to go there and find a number of different things that can be very helpful. And on the ETR site, the Symbaloo that Greg had put up and mentioned there, if you click on that and walk through a number of different things, you'll find a lot of very helpful material for your own professional development and personal growth that I think would be quite useful, whether you were working with ETR programs or not. My goal, which may sound odd because I have this odd title of sales and being a sales manager, is really working with my colleagues around the country to connect them to the best fit of a curriculum and a program that's going to have the best and most positive health education outcomes on your student-based populations. That's our interest as an organization. I have my belief and faith in the practices, programs, and people of ETR and what we have done. But anything that we can do to help you look at and identify those particular programs, I'm glad to be a small part of it.
Thank you all so much.
Greg, I would just say any other questions before we leave for the evening? We're happy to answer. Otherwise, feel free to reach out at any time.